Good evening, adventurers. Tonight we have two tales. In the first, we have a player who, after realising an NPC in combat has some immunities to their spells, throws a tantrum and quits the game rather than working with the other players. And the second story will be brought to you by a special guest. Stay tuned. Let's get into it. Tonight's tale is called Fire Immunity Causes a Tantrum. This story has to do with a specific warlock tiefling that I'm going to call Monkey, as he had a pet monkey for a familiar. The party is participating in a tournament of sorts, where it's party versus party. One of their matches is against a pyromancer, who's immune to fire damage, and an orc fighter, a burly frontline fighter who is not immune to fire damage. Monkey had caused me issues in the past by getting upset at stupid things, but they always seemed somewhat reasonable, so I gave him the benefit of the doubt. But he had brought down the mood of everyone at the table twice before this instance. I run on a 3 strikes and you're out policy, but I am willing to make exceptions if the player realises their mistake when I speak with them after the session. Anyway, Monkey gets into the fight with the other 5 members of the party, and I know he's specialised in fire damage. It's honestly part of the reason I designed the encounter the way I did. So he'd have to work with his party because he couldn't take on the pyromancer by himself. Monkey suffers a bit from main character syndrome, but he does let others shine enough to where I didn't think that this was a problem. As soon as Monkey realises the pyromancer is immune to fire damage, he stops participating in the fight completely. He says over and over that he's completely useless, and eventually just gets up and leaves the table until combat was done. We called the session after the combat about 25 minutes early because it dragged the mood down. I go over to talk to him and I ask him what was wrong. He goes on an absolute tirade about how I'm a terrible DM and can't design encounters, and it was unfair that he was completely useless in that fight. I tried to reiterate that the orc was not fire immune, but no, that wasn't good enough. After going back and forth for over 45 minutes, I've had enough. He did not apologise, and he never once was even willing to acknowledge any side but his. I even asked him if he were the DM, would he think that his actions were appropriate? And he avoided the question all 3 times that I asked it. So, I kicked him out of my group as politely as I could, then went back shaking and in tears talking to the others of the group. They all supported my decision, but on top of that he left 2 other games that he was in, one of which I am also a player in, which is DM'd by one of the players in my game. Monkey entirely blamed me for him leaving the other 2 games as well, and he proceeded to block everyone on the Discord. At first, I did feel responsible for his actions, but then the others in my group helped me realise that he was manipulating me. My game continues, and we even got a replacement for Monkey within 2 hours of their removal, brought in by one of my players. He's someone that I knew, so I approved it, and there has been no further out of character issues since. My group of players is amazing and extremely supportive, as I try to be as well. The new player even roleplayed out his backstory so well that I'm incorporating it into the main plot of my game, and it's going to be epic. And there we have it. Right, well, at the end of the day, there are many people playing Dungeons and Dragons in order to improve their social skills, and that's commendable. So let's just hope this was a learning experience for Monkey, and hopefully they'll start to overcome their frustrations in a more mature manner, as, let's face it, kicking off when something in-game happens that you don't really like is a poor reaction, especially when you then resort to refusing to play and spitting vitriol at your dungeon master. Oddly enough, it seems like this player would prefer to only have fights in which their opponents have no resistances or immunities to their character, and that there are no trials or tribulations, which, to me, sounds like the antithesis of fun. And I do have to give props to the Dungeon Master for removing them from the game. It's never easy to kick a player, Have you ever played in a game where a player could get actively upset because their character encountered a tough opponent? How was it resolved? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, tonight we have a second tale, coming right up. I'd like to introduce everyone to Reading Raptor, who will be the storyteller on this one. Over to you, Raptor.
Yo! Thanks for having me, Dirk. I'm Reading Raptor, and today's story is about a player who violates everyone's privacy with an awful secret. Begin post. So, I was running a relatively short 5e campaign with a group I'd canvassed together on Roll20. All of the group were very nice, including the problem player, John. That is, until I discovered his secret. See, during our session 0.5, as I like to call them, John was constantly talking about Critical Role and Adventure Zone, and how he really wanted to DM and stream his own game one day. We were generally supportive and wished him all the best with it when he found a group for that. Over the next few weeks of playing, I found John's behavior in-game slowly changing, which I only made sense of in retrospect. He'd announce obvious things almost like a commentator. Then he'd ask me to repeat things more slowly or loudly, stating that he was having trouble with his headset, even though no one else did. And also, he would try to insert his character into literally every single scene or event, even if he had nothing to do with it. I chalked this up to his playing style, and even asked him to pull back a couple of times with the spotlight hogging. This came to a head, however, when one of my players contacted me and showed me a link to John's Twitch channel, where I found that he had been streaming the game for weeks without telling any of us or asking for our permission. What's worse is that he was actually enjoying some mild popularity from it. The only reason why this player found out was because John had told him about it, thinking they could work together to influence the game towards what his, quote, fans were asking for. I contact John and tell him that I knew about him streaming our game. He tries to defend himself, saying that he works hard as a player and that he should be able to show his, quote, work to whomever he pleases. Especially since he apparently, quote, put in so much effort to entertain the fans. I bluntly tell him that the fact that he didn't ask any of us for permission to stream us infers that either A, he knew that none of us would approve, or B, he was so genuinely self-entitled that he just didn't care about our wishes. In addition, I inform him that he didn't have to do a darn bit of, quote, work for the game, and that the only other person in the group who did was me. Since I, actually had to devote time to prepping the game when all he had to do was show up. From there, I posted in our group Discord about what John had done, and the group unanimously voted to kick him, as he was spamming the group chat. He also spammed us individually, begging us not to kick him. He gets the boot, and the last message I get from him before I block him is him saying that I, quote, ruined all his hard work and potential career. End post. Yeah, it's definitely clear from the story, and especially how he reacted at the end of the post, how John prioritized entertaining the fans and building his Twitch channel over being considerate of the players and the table and their feelings and their privacy and whatnot. Like, bro, if you're gonna do something like that, you have to ask for permission. You have to. And yeah, you definitely nailed it on the head. He definitely knew he was doing something wrong here because he deliberately tried to hide it, and he knew that he wouldn't be able to get permission, which is why he hid it. So yeah, he definitely goofed here. Glad you guys kicked him out, and I hope he learned a lesson from all this, for sure. Anyways, that's it. Thanks again to Dirk for having me on, and I will see y'all later. Peace!
Thanks for the story, Raptor, and thank you for coming by. If you enjoyed his story, please take a moment to go to his channel. The link will be in the description. And if you enjoyed the stories, please like and subscribe. There are more to come, and it really helps me out. That's all I have for this evening. Good night.